about, I don't know, Guangdong, right? Or a bunch of stories from Sinchon, rather than one story from this province and one story from that province. And if it's all from one place, then you feel like you learn something about that place too. So I chose Brooklyn, New York. So I live in Brooklyn, so it's easier. But also because Brooklyn has a large Arab population, and Brooklyn is close to Ground Zero, where the World Trade Center was. Brooklyn is also one of the biggest cities in the United States. It's a very multicultural city. So all of these reasons made me choose Brooklyn, New York. So those were the ideas I had before I started writing the book. And then I decided, let me see if I can find good stories to write. And I started the project thinking, I want to see if I can find 3 stories, 3 specific stories. And then the rest of the time, I would just listen and try to discover what were the best stories. So the 3 specific stories that I wanted, one was a story about an Arab-American soldier. I thought it would be interesting to find a soldier who was fighting in Iraq, because that would be just the nature of the story is interesting. Who does he sympathize with? What is it like to be an Arab American in the military? All of those reasons. And I also thought that another interesting story would be an Iraqi American, someone from Iraq who lives in America while there's a war in Iraq. So those were 2. And the third one was was a story about being in detention, in a prison. Because after September 11, right after September 11, the government arrested at least 5,000 people, only on the basis of their passports, basically. Right? So if you were if your immigration status, they would stop you and ask you what your, basically for your papers. And if you were an immigrant, then you were vulnerable. And if you had something wrong with your papers, even more vulnerable. So they arrested at least 5,000 people this way. Right? And so within the community that I know, this was a big story. Because it was very traumatic. It was a very difficult time. But in the United States in general, there was not enough attention paid to that experience. So I wanted to represent that experience.